Before we start today's show, just wanted to offer a message of support. So many of you have written in and sent all kinds of messages supporting JK in this difficult time due to the loss of his father, Ralph Kinchin. I had the pleasure of meeting Ralph once, appropriately enough. It was at the NHC out in Las Vegas. He was a great guy, so fun to talk about sports and life and, of course, horse racing. And, of course, he's been a character on the show over the years for his influence of JK. What I particularly remember about that encounter was me briefly trying to pay the check and him giving me a look like that was never going to happen. He was a class act and a great guy. I wish I'd gotten to know him more. JK, we love you. We're here for you. And we can't wait to have you back. And, we know you're going through a tough time. And if there's anything anybody in the Money family can do, to reach out, and we'll all be there for you. I think I speak for the whole audience when I say that. Okay, let's get on with the show. Hello and welcome to the Players Podcast presented by In the Money Media for Friday, October 23rd. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatale, back with you, as you can see, in the Brooklyn bunker once again. We've changed out the fedora for the sort of wintry punter's cap. I don't know. Does that mean we have to change the logo? I hope not. Very excited. Breeders' Cup nearly upon us, but we've got a loaded weekend of racing, and we've got 3 guests coming up in the course of the next hour to talk about it all with you. We're going to kick things off with John Camardo talking New York racing. I honestly can't remember the order of the others. I'll just guess. Then I believe we have Drew Coatney to talk about Woodbine and this attempt at a Canadian Triple Crown. And then we're going to wrap things up with professional horse player Sean Boarman talking Keeneland. And we're going to get things going right after this. We're trying something different this Breeders' Cup, but don't worry. Everything that's always been free is still going to be free. All the shows. In fact, we're going to be doing more shows and even adding more content that's going to be free as well. But for those who can't get enough Breeders' Cup, super excited to announce the 2020 Breeders' Cup Premium Package. All manner of interesting horse players making contributions to this stuff. I don't even want to start naming them because I won't be able to finish, but lots of names you're used to seeing here on the In the Money Network, giving their thoughts, bets, angles, all kinds of stuff. If you want to learn more, inthemoneypodcast.com/BC, you can see how it's all going to shake out. We'd love to have folks involved. We appreciate you playing around with something new. If you think it's a cool idea, which I think it's a cool idea, please support us. inthemoneypodcast.com/BC. PTF back with you. Very happy to welcome back to the airwaves, maybe for the first time with video, our buddy, the self-professed stats geek in the Money family, John Camardo. How are you, my man?
Pretty good, Pete. How are you?
Life is good. I wish we had you for a longer visit because you said something very interesting when we were chatting off air about how much Hong Kong you've been playing, and I want to know how that's going. But knowing you, New York guy that you are, I know that you've been messing around at Belmont too. How have you been doing this fall meet?
Pretty bad, actually.
Way to give the listeners and viewers confidence, John. But we appreciate your honesty. What's been going on?
I changed it up today for everyone, so
good.
We're going to try to turn it around here, but I had a pretty good Preakness weekend, and then it's been pretty downhill since then. So we're going to try to rebound with Empire Classic Day. I went to Belmont a couple of years ago and actually got this hat. Some nice gentleman gifted it to me on Empire Classic Day. So
show it to it. We got to see it better. You've got the low angle going. Oh, that's just the classic Belmont green, the Kelly green, great tree logo. I for many years that was my gym bag, was a Belmont Park bag, and it was great because the other degenerates could spot you from a mile away.
I love it. I mean, it's very exciting to wear it around and try to spot fellow degenerates.
Good stuff. Empire Classic Day. Very quickly, one quick follow-up on your big Preakness Day. Did you just love Swiss Skydiver in the race full stop, or was that a value play based on where you had your line and the fact that, as predicted, but then not acted upon by me, the crowd completely ignored her when push came to shove?
It was absolutely a value play. I looked at the odds when the race opened up, and I saw 11, whatever it was, to 1. I think it was 11 to 1, and I was like, wow, tough to pass that one up. I actually did bet doubles into her as well. But yeah, it was very much a value play from a win perspective. Had her in my stables and stable duel also, and got second in a pretty big contest there. So it was a good day all around.
We're going to have to bring you back Breeders' Cup week. I don't have all the details yet, but Stable Duel is going to be doing special Breeders' Cup content again. Last year we did that fun show with you, me, and Spencer, talking all about that was the debut of Stable Duel 1 year ago, how far they've come. And hopefully you'll be willing to come on and share some of your knowledge, because I know that last time I checked, you were one of the top 10 rated players on the site.
Down to 20 now, but that's not for lack of trying. It's for lack of playing, I think.
Okay, there you go. Well, there's always time to get moving and grooving. All right, we've got about 10 minutes to roll through these 5 races, so obviously we're going to keep this pretty lean and mean. We kick things off with race number 7. This is the Hudson. We've got a 6.5 furlong dirt race for 3-year-olds and up. I'll let you kick things off, John. Who did you like in here?
So I gave a look to my boy Tate. I know he's a rather divisive human animal, but I was kind of looking more across all the horses. I actually took a look at PPs today. I usually don't, so it was kind of interesting to get myself back into the game here.
We should explain. I'll just interrupt to explain there, as it has probably been figured out by people, but in case you didn't get it, John is his horse playing fueled by a computer model. So your PPs look a little bit different than the ones that the rest of us are using Timeform US Daily Racing Form, though you do occasionally dabble in the old school approach.
I do occasionally dabble, and took the opportunity today to reintroduce myself to the world of commercial past performance data, and saw ones all over the page here, and really thought that there might be a pretty significant amount of speed signed on. So I kind of looked across what I had as a fair value line, and looked across my speed figures, saw Captain Bombastic as potentially a value play. So I think horse to beat, by all means, my boy Tate, but I would probably make my top pick Captain Bombastic.
I can see Captain Bombastic as a long shot. In the end, I did go with my boy Tate as the presumptive best closer. The morning line has T Loves a Fight at 4 to 1. I don't know that I'd be thrilled at that price, but I was just, as I looked through these PPs, was seeing a world in which that one drifted up. I want to keep T Loves a Fight on my radar. And was also looking at Big Engine as one who might be able to benefit if they go too fast in this Hudson. And that's how we'll kick off this pick 5, which moves next to the turf for our second leg. We've got the Mohawk Stakes, mile and a 16th on the inner. And for me, this one was as simple as the horses that I've liked throughout this year in graded stakes on the turf coming back into this spot. I don't like any of them better than Some Like It Hot Brown, a horse I've been a really big fan of, and I think we'll go back to front-running tactics in this spot, and that could change the result. I don't see myself getting beaten by Cross Border, who's obviously done some fantastic work, including grade 2 wins against Open, and then old friend Dot Matrix I thought was worth potentially including as well. I know this is one that Brad Cox has really liked, has been very ambitiously spotted this season, has a shot to maybe be the best closer in this one, if that's the running style that prevails. Let's say Cross Border and Some Like It Hot Brown hook up a little bit too early or something. Maybe Dot Matrix can get in there for a piece. John, how did you see it?
I have nothing to really disagree with there. I think Cross Border, Some Like It Hot Brown, probably be very tough to beat. For me, I think they'll be pretty short, and I think this is more competitive than it might seem at first glance. So I'll pass probably on Cross Border and Some Like a Hot Brown. I gave a look to Rinaldi, I think he's pretty fast. Probably going to ride the Saez train all day here, along with Christoph later in the pick 5. So I think I'm gonna hope that Castellano strangles his horse, who's pretty fast back. Gonna let Saez take him all the way. But I did see some value in Dot Matrix as well. So top choice is probably Rinaldi, second Dot Matrix, and then the other two, third and fourth, just because I can't take that shorter price.
It's not unreasonable. We'll see how it plays out on Saturday. Let's move on to race number 9, the Iroquois Stakes. We've got fillies and mares this time, 3 and up, going 6.5 on the dirt. And I'll throw it back to you to kick things off in this one. How are we going to keep this pick 5 rolling?
So the last time I played Belmont before I quit for about a week and a half, which is not very long in hindsight.
That's like a jockey retirement. It doesn't, sometimes people who say they retire and come back in a week and a half, I start to wonder if they know what the word means, but go ahead.
I got beat by a Rob Atras horse, and I saw 2 in here that looked to be pretty competitive. I think Officer Hutchie, I think if I recall, is coming out of a claiming race 2 back. And Fair Regis is the other Atras horse. I think they look competitive. I saw nothing wrong with them. He seems to improve his horses pretty significantly after claims. So when I looked at the rest of the field, I saw a couple Linda Rice horses. She's pretty cold. Starting the Belmont meet. And so I might just take it Fair Regis, Officer Hutchie and move on here.
It's not crazy. I mean, the last time I was looking at the run of form of the Atras barn, it was something like had won 6 of 9 or 6 of 10, and 3 of the other 4 had run second. So, I mean, if you look at short-term trainer fluctuations, and, sometimes those can get so overbet in your day-to-day racing, but in a stakes race, it still might sneak off at prices. So I think it's very wise. I'm glad you pointed that out. Just from a form and figures point of view, though, I couldn't get off of Timely Tradition in this spot. I just thought it was going to get a great trip stalking going to be either stalking or on the lead. Has sort of a push button look to me. Looks in career form. I couldn't get past her. I was pretty strong on Timely Tradition, and I definitely see your point on the Atras runners. I might even try to get some more backups here, depending on how the tickets look. Newly minted, logical, very consistent, versatile horse. And then my goofy horse, more for underneath, but I might even use for a penny on top, Collegeville Girl. This is the kind of play where I don't necessarily think they're going to go too fast and it's going to melt down, but that can sometimes happen in these 6.5 sprints. Rosario suits this one. I think she's going to come running and can get involved for at least more like a 3rd and 4th type, but again, might even use for a penny on top in the 9th race. Let's move on to our 10th race. This is our feature, the Empire Classic, and we see a couple of really tough New York breds facing off one more time in Mr. Buff and Funny Guy, but some other horses that definitely make a little bit of sense too. I didn't really get all the Wise Guy love this summer for Funny Guy. I mean, a lot of sharp people were making the case for this one in the Forgo and in the Vosburg, and he didn't disgrace himself at all, obviously running second in the Vosburg and not a bad run, really, all things considered, in the Forgo. I feel like he's absolutely fine at the distance based on the work earlier in his career and is going to take all the beating here. So I'm getting on the Funny Guy train for this one. I don't see myself getting beaten by Mr. Buff. Bank it, my horse, to come running late for 3rd. I'm wondering if you're going to be intimidated by the low odds on Funny Guy and Mr. Buff and have something a little bit more creative here.
So I gave a look to both of those horses, and I agree that Funny Guy probably would be my top pick amongst the 2 of them if I had to pick one of the 2 of them, just based on recent races that they've shared together. I agree, bank it. Probably only will ever get 3rd ever again. I've spent way too much money on this horse and can't go back to the well. The only thing that I thought that I might give a chance to was Seafoam. Looks to have turned it around since I think he was beaten by 30 lengths a couple of starts back. seems to be in pretty decent form. I think has to step up quite a bit to be competitive with these types. But I don't know. I just think Funny Guy and Mr. Buff are going to take way too much money for me to be palatable for me.
I wonder how Rosario is going to ride Seafoam, who has a little bit of a one-way look to me, at least at this point in his career. Rosario not known for his aggressiveness early, and I wonder how it's going to play out with Mr. Buff drawn to his inside. Who's going to get the lead here? That race within the race might really determine how things shake out, but I can see it if I squint on Seafoam there in the 10th race. We've just got another minute, John, but we do have to obviously get to leg E. We're out of the stakes ranks. We're going for a 3 and up New York bred allowance, 7 furlongs on the turf. How are we going to get paid?
I had a lot of trouble with this race. I wanted to make it as simple as an advanced strategy. But the more I looked at this race, the more it just confused the hell out of me. If I had to make it really simple, I'd probably say advanced strategy. I gave a look to Bad Guy. I think there's a pretty significant rider upgrade. He's going route to sprint. Downside there is 2 for 40 lifetime, 1 for 18 on the turf. I also gave a look to Impassable Odds. Tough draw, but I think at the price, worth the shot.
And being around one turn, I wonder if Impassable Odds can't possibly get the trip from there. Has a little bit of tactical foot. I'm interested in Impassable Odds, though I did make my first pick just on a pace alone basis. Big Wonder, who I think could end up being the best speed, had a very tricky trip at a couple of spots last time out. And I don't mind this switch one bit. Nothing really against Cardenas, but I've really been liking the aggressive way that Dylan Davis is riding. I think that I think this one's just going to have more tactical foot than Smite and be able to get out there. But I think you're right. As much as advanced strategy makes sense and I want as a backup, it feels like a good place to go fishing for a price. And at the end of the day, it sounds like we both agree on that point.
Absolutely. Pete, so I know we're wrapping up here. Do you mind if I do 30 seconds on this analytics conference?
I had it on my list as how to get out of here with you. I know you're doing this. It's a virtual analytics. I'll let you pitch it.
Yeah, it's exactly like you were about to describe it, a virtual kind of analytics conference. So Stu Slagle and I are co-moderators for this thing called Combos About Racing on Tuesday, acronym to CARROT. It's going to be a webinar series to start. And if the world ever gets back to normal, we'll likely move in person.
I love it.
The overall objective is to create a community of like-minded data analytics people in horse racing to kind of continue to grow the analytics movement. Our first webinar is this coming Tuesday, 10/27 at 9 Eastern. The 2 speakers of the night are Teddy Coker giving an introduction to machine learning for horse racing.
Fantastic.
And Byron Rogers giving a talk on using geometric. I'm not even going to, he's talking about some more machine learning.
That Cornell education and you can't pronounce the word. What's going on here, John?
It's too early in the morning, Pete. I'm only just a quarter of the way through my cup of coffee. So that's part of the problem here. If you're interested, I'm going to give Pete a link to hopefully shoot out after a little later today on Twitter. Reach out to me on Twitter at John_Camardo. If you're interested in talking in the future, signing up, we can get you in the right direction.
We've had a lot of people ask over the years about this exact topic, mostly younger, data-minded people such as yourself. And I love the idea for the series. I want to hear what it's all about. And I also love the idea of supporting it with some podcast content. Maybe after we get past the Breeders' Cup, maybe we can do a best of CARROT type of podcast. And, Stu is an old friend, a good friend. Who I really like. So I'm glad you guys, I didn't know you guys even knew each other. So it's great to hear that. And I'm excited to help in any way I can. So we'll start off with a plug on the show and a little bit of social media support on Tuesday. But I bet you there's more we can do long-term on this, John. It's a topic that I don't really know much about, but I'm, at one degree of separation, completely fascinated by, and I think it's the future. So especially younger horse players, people getting into the game, I think there's going to be a lot more I don't see printed past performances ever going away. I think there's always going to be a set of people who want to experience the game that way and dope out stuff on the form, even if they're doing it on their tablet instead of paper. But obviously, when it comes to our world in general, this idea of being able to process data in a more elegant way, I mean, and through different apps and et cetera, this is the future, and it's something that's really important, especially if you're like one of our audience, and I know we have a bunch of you. If you're under 30, like, don't miss this stuff. if you're older like me, maybe you follow from afar and pick up what you can. But I really think it's an important area for learning. Good stuff, John. Thank you for coming on to talk about that and your thoughts on this Belmont card. Let's turn it around. I want to see your name on the top of those Stable Duel leaderboards.
Let's hope so. I'm hoping for a big weekend this weekend.
Cheers, my friend. We'll be talking soon.
Great. Thanks, Pete.
Today's show brought to you in part by our friends at Stable Duel. A new breed of gaming is here. Super fun way to play the horses. Great news. They are going to be Breeders' Cup games again, but you don't have to wait till Breeders' Cup. You can start playing right now this fun game that combines horse racing contest play, traditional horse play, you could throw in fixed odds betting, the way it works, picking from the morning lines in this game. And of course, there's a fantasy sports element as well, as you put together a team of horses to compete on the day. To play, you'll need to download the Stable Duel app. And for more information, you can go to stableduel.com. Next up on the show, we have a guest. I think he's been the guest on these video podcasts more than anybody else. I'm almost positive. In fact, it's a certainty. Is it as much of a certainty as the first Canadian Triple Crown winner since 2003? We'll find out as we begin our conversation with In the Money Media's own Drew Coatney. Drew, how are you?
I'm doing good. This morning. It's kind of one of those fall days here in Chicago, raining a little bit, but you know what? I'm down in my bunker as well and getting ready for a good weekend of racing up at Woodbine.
I like the looks of your bunker. We need to do something about those walls, though. We got can we hang like an In the Money Media banner or, at least a picture of a horse? We got to get you decorated out, man.
I hate to blame COVID on everything, but our Canadian friends north of the border were trying to get me a saddle cloth, but I guess customs doesn't like shipping things too much right now, especially if you're a business entity moving one piece of cargo to another, even though it's a parcel. So I'm working on it. We'll get this taken care of.
You'll get it done. Okay, good. I'm glad to hear it. We're excited. We are going to be talking Woodbine all the way through the end of their meet, which is fantastic. And this continues to be really interesting racing. We're going to dive in to this late pick four. Obviously, everybody's mind is on the Breeders' Stakes, and we'll pause and talk about that a little bit longer. But we're going to kick things off with race number 8. We've got a 3-and-up allowance going 6 furlongs on the turf. A heavy favorite in Eye in the Sky from Mark Casse, who certainly is a contender. Are you with Eye in the Sky or against, Drew?
This is a tough race. I just put at the top of my PPs perplexing. I think there's not a ton of pace in here. So I am on Eye in the Sky. Number 6, Eye in the Sky for me at 95. Morning line. Should be able to get that nice stalking trip and make a wide move. But I'm not crazy about the price. So number 6, Eye in the Sky for me. I do have one other idea, but I'll leave it for you just in case you take my idea.
I thought Nantucket Red was interesting in this spot. I like the cutback for her. We've talked with Craig Milkowski before about runners cutting out the fast fractions, the red coded fractions, and situations where they might do better or worse. I'm wondering about this one because this one was setting those fractions going longer, now cutting back to the 6 furlongs. I thought there was a chance Nantucket Red could be the best speed. I like where this one is in the form cycle. I feel like heading in the right direction when you consider the pace in the last race. And this is a horse that I just think is worth a look from on or near the lead at a solid price. Can you see her at all?
That was my other idea. Yeah, everything you stole right from me. So I'm glad we worked as a team on that one.
It is nice but it's interesting. I'm typically the one between the two of us leaning favorite and you going with the interesting long shot. I assume in the column you'll be writing over at inthemoneypodcast.com. You'll be using both?
Yeah, I think so. I haven't done the full deep dive yet in some of the replays because I would like to see Nantucket Reds runs back in June against another time. Super Escape, who is another speed type of horse, and Elizabeth Way. So there's some good company that this one was keeping as well that I want to watch and see how Nantucket Red, the number 2, responded to.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about that run in the Trillium. I think turf is definitely the better surface, and that for me was just a straight X-out race. I mean, obviously 7th beaten 30, but yeah, it's not a bad idea to go back and watch. I mean, the form is pretty solid when you look back to the Nassau, and then it's just a question of what kind of trip she's going to get. I was hoping maybe she could just stalk. Let Eye in the Sky do her thing. Maybe Helen Wild can keep that one honest, and Nantucket Red can get a nice stalking trip. I will say nothing against the man personally, but I've noticed myself falling on the wrong side of Contreras a lot in the last few weekends at Woodbine. I'm hoping we can get on the same page here and hopefully get a victory to kick things off. Let's move to leg B of this pick 4, race number 9. We've got 3 and up maidens going 1 mile and a 16th on the turf. Here I will go first because I'm horribly uncreative, liking the number 1, Jalore John. Looking at that figure 2 back just really stands out against this field. I think we're going to get the right type of trip in this spot. Simply didn't see out the trip last time. Back at the right distance. I think they might all be running for second in here. What is your read on race number 9?
Yeah, I am on the number 2 Dictate only because it looked like an absolute prep. And there was a workout prior to that prep race that was on the turf that looked pretty good from a number standpoint, running the flat flat minute 5 furlongs. So I'm going to go the number 2 Dictate at a price. I'm hoping that price drifts up. I think 12 to 1, 15 to 1 feels fair. I get the case on number 1, John, however we want to pronounce that. The only thing that gave me pause was there was an inner running a couple back the second start. So we always talk about, some horses like the inner more than others, but I think the progressive pattern of improving figures helps maybe dispel that. But at 2 to 1 or less on the day, it's going to be a tough one for me to back.
I can see the Dictate case for sure. If she can settle looking at pace figures, she could be out there alone. So I like that idea as a backup. But I do worry that you're not going to get that drift just because of the speed. We know the market's so sensitive these days to pace figures. I remember doing Betting with an Edge with Mike Maloney. He talked about this where horses, and we weren't sure if maybe in part the Timeform US proliferation of pace numbers was part of this, but just felt like horses that used to pay 8 to 1 as lone front runners these days are 7 to 2. So hopefully for your sake and my sake, because I will be using her as a backup, Dictate doesn't get too hammered on that pace angle. But in any case, I think Jalore John might be good enough to run this one down. We shall see on Saturday. Let's move on, Drew, and talk about really the featured race, I think, of the weekend in the Breeders' Stakes. 1.5 miles on the turf. One of the great things about the Canadian Triple Crown. Not only are we looking at races at different distances, we're also looking at 3 races at different surfaces. And eventually that led me to my conclusion. I'm wondering, from my point of view, the mixed emotions Josie Carroll might have when she upsets her own Triple Crown bid for Mighty Heart with her own horse, because that's how I think this is going to happen. Belichick, when you look at this breeding, not really dirt breeding. Lemon Drop Kid out of a Monjou mare. Now getting to do his thing once again on the turf. This horse has long been a clocker's darling. That was the reason in part why you and I both picked this one to run in the number back in the first leg of the Triple Crown, the Queen's Plate, because of how well the horse was training. I haven't talked to Ernie Perry about this yet, but just looking at the workouts for Belichick seems like has continued to go in the right direction. I think he can turn the tables and get the money and upset the party to some degree in this year's Breeders' Stakes. Who do you think's going to win?
I don't know. We just got all sorts of rain pouring down here, so hopefully it's not too loud in the background. Maybe that's a sign of things to come. Just raining money down on us because we're really up that mighty heart.
Make it rain, Drew. Make it rain.
So we're gonna go with the number 11. Told It All. You just talked about how Timeform figures project fast on paper, and proven strategies in the Toronto Cup was exactly that. In that last event, was loose on the lead on the turf, and number 11 Told It All got stuck behind a 61-1 shot on the rail. Had a subtle steady, I should say, that's not in the PPs, and then had a non-finish effort and finished a good fourth. 4 lengths back, I should say, from Proven Strategies, Cheryl Spite, Lucky Curlin. Those are very classy horses, in my opinion. I think a little bit of extra distance and a more even finish should pay well for this one in the spot today. I have a couple other angles that we can get to if we have time, so I'll turn it to you.
We have time, but let's pause on Told It All. I get it. Norm McKnight wins everything. Kimura certainly and a positive. A little more distance. I won't argue with that, but this isn't a little more distance. This is a lot more distance. And on pedigree, especially looking at the siblings, it doesn't really look like a route pedigree to me. I think you're definitely if the horse is actually 12-1, I'm not going to argue with you about you, but I feel like if you're talking about Told It All's chances in this race, at least questioning the distance has to be part of the conversation.
Yeah, well, and this gets me back to looking at the workout patterns. And if I'm a trainer who wins at everything, and I know exactly what you just discussed of we're going long, why are you still working at 4 furlongs back to back to back? So if you're leading up to this event and you're not putting them on the 5 or the 6 furlong type of workouts just to get them fit, I don't think the distance should be an issue. And the other point to that too was this one has been running at the 8.5 furlongs for a while. In some of those 8.5 furlong configurations at Woodbine, the mile configuration and the EP Taylor and the mile and the quarter, 8.5 furlongs can be one turn. I don't feel like you get to settle in those one turn events as well when you're going the route of ground that these will today. So the workout pattern has me more confident that this one will be able to get all that distance.
I'm not going to complain if you picking this one as the clear speed. If you're going to get those double-digit odds, that's for sure. Who were some of your other ideas in here?
Yeah, Clayton, number 3. I think the 6-1 feels like a great morning line. Finally gets a post draw, not out in the parking lot, and should have a much better trip today. My past 2 legs of the Triple Crown have always said this one's going to have to face adversity. Well, you don't have to face adversity if you get a great post draw on your way clean. So this one also looks to be progressing nicely in the morning. And if you can get 6-1 with Hernandez aboard, that's not a bad price there either.
It's interesting. I mean, I was just of the mind that Mighty Heart has Clayton's number. And I just like how much more, getting into some of the softer visual handicapping factors here, how much more of a mind for business Mighty Heart seems to have about his racing than Clayton does. So it's hard. It's just hard for me to get over that mental hurdle. But that's not to say I'm right. I mean, it was hard for me to get over the mental hurdle of Swiss Skydiver finishing ahead of Art Collector as easily as Art Collector beat her in the Bluegrass, and we all know what happened there. So yeah. I again, another one I'm not going to talk you off of. What do you think of Mighty Heart's chances? I mean, I really think he is even money in this spot, and my preference for Belichick just has more to do with what I think is going to happen at the prices. Are you against Mighty Heart full stop? How do you? What chance do you think we're going to see history here?
I think I'm against Mighty Heart full stop for a couple reasons. One of which is don't back any horse trying it for the first time. Granted, there was a fairgrounds event that was a catastrophe. So we're going to say don't back anything for the first time or that didn't do it well before.
So you're talking about the turf more than distance is your concern.
Yes, thank you for clarifying for me. And so the turf events, it just, at the price we're going to get, I struggle to back Mighty Heart. Would it be awesome and will I be cheering for this one if Mighty Heart gets clear and brings home the Triple Crown, yeah, that's going to be awesome. But I just feel like this is too much distance for one, on the turf as well. And there's just going to be pace pressure and closers every which way on this one. This is a tough spot. And if Mighty Heart can do it on Saturday, this one's the real goods.
What you said you had one other horse. I'm curious if you have one of your patented Drew Coatney 20-1 shots that I can't see, but then run second.
I did not. No. I just had Clayton here, so I apologize. But I probably did find one in the write-up. So don't be surprised if you see another 30-1 that I like for an underneath spot here. So apologies on that.
No worries at all. Let's talk about the last race. We do have to keep things moving here, but we have a couple minutes, Craig, to talk about this 3-and-up 10-dime claimer going 6 on the synthetic for fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and up. And I'll ask you the question: how are we going to get paid?
Yeah, that's a tough question in this spot here. I liked a couple horses, so I'm going to give out 2. That I like equally that have good prices. So the first one is number 12, Too Many Shots.
We've all been there.
What's that?
We've all been there, I said.
Oh, well, mine tends to be too many martinis, but that's another story. So
I forget how posh you are sometimes. Like I got the idea.
Yeah, right. Well, hey, I do order them stirred, so that does speak volumes for myself. So, anyways, the number.
I could do 12, I could do a 5-minute on how ridiculous a shaken martini is, but we'll leave that for another podcast. Give your case on the 12 Too Many Shots here.
The number 12 Too Many Shots at 12-1 was against the pace flow last time, big time. It drug out the field 12 lengths. That's why watching replays is so important to me. And if you're not familiar with it, I recommend just going back to watch the number 12 Too Many Shots race on October 11th. The field gets strung out, and Too Many Shots is kind of loose on the lead, and the horses who finished first and second are in the back of that pack, 12 lengths behind Too Many Shots. So that's an against the pace flow scenario for us, and I think has the speed to get positioned today. There's a little bit of a class drop, and that non-finishing effort, losing by 14 lengths, it's not a surprise there. The jockey had wrapped this one up early and said, look, we're going to fight another day somewhere else. So we should be able to get some good value on that one. The other one, I'll let you. Do you have any comments on that before I jump?
I'm just going to underline it. I feel like if Too Many Shots runs back to the race 3 back, going 7 furlongs, back on the synthetic, back sprinting, if she lets the other speed, I don't think she has a prayer in the world if she goes up in the vanguard, but just looking at pace figures, cutting back from the route, should be able to sit mid-pack and finish. Has some of the best, if you cherry pick, has some of the best closing sectionals in the entire race. So I like that call very much. Yeah. And the other one is the number 10, This Round's Mine. So we're recording. I see a theme developing here. Too Many Shots, This Round's Mine. People are going to start to get the wrong idea about you, Drew.
I think so. And it's not even 9:00 my time out here in Chicago. So, but This Round's Mine, 8-1, the number 10, comes off a nice little break from the summer, had a non-exciting effort. Going 7 furlongs on the Topito, but gets the class drop a little bit. Catherine Day Phillips knows how to get them ready well enough, and today should get a wide stalking trip. We talk about this all the time in these lower rungs, and we use that angle in the Breeders' Stakes where you have a 60-1 on the rail, and all of that fodder that's coming back and drifting out of the race gets in the ways of the contenders. So being drawn in this scenario is not a bad move for me, not in my eyes in this spot here. So the number 10, This Round's Mine, should get a wide stalking trip, could get up because there does seem to be a lot of pace. She was my top pick. This is definitely a weaker group, second off the long layoff, another candidate to have best closing sectionals. And I would totally agree. I don't mind wide post one bit going 1 turn. 2 turns,
It starts to depend on the racetrack and the specific attributes of the horse. But sprinting, I don't mind at all. I think under Emma especially, I think this round's mine should get a great trip, and I am going to do some backing up with 12. You and I will have the cocktail hour exacta with this round's mine and Too Many Shots. I'm not feeling off the top of my head a logical place for a head-to-head, but did you disagree with any of mine? Maybe something you didn't seem to like Jalor John too much in race 9. We could do something around that one. I don't really think the Breeders' Stakes offers too much of an opportunity, but what do you think?
Yeah, the Breeders' Stakes is the only one. I didn't like the Jalor John. I think that is a logical winner. I think the price was just going to be too short on the day. I don't know if we have a head-to-head. The Breeders' Stakes maybe Told It All in Clayton versus Belichick, and we'll see what happens.
Oh, I'm definitely down with that.
That's it.
Yeah, I'm down with that. That's a fun one. I mean, Clayton, you'll probably be getting the best of it in terms of the prices, but I'm just enough in Belichick's corner that I'm happy with that. All right, so I'll take Belichick, and you'll go for the twofer against me, and your 2 horses being Told It All, but also Clayton, who I'm fairly worried about. I'm nearly certain Belichick finishes ahead of Told It All, but I don't have quite the same feeling about Clayton. It'll be fun to watch it. Honestly, this is a race where I think it'd just be such a great story, good for racing, good for Woodbine to see Mighty Heart get the job done. I'm sure you agree about that, but it's a gambling game, so we got to put our money down where we feel like we can get the best of it.
Well, hey, and that's a good question, though. You just brought up of you're really nervous of Clayton. What do you think is a fair price for Clayton and Belichick? Would your opinion and where your dollars are going flip based on either of those prices? No,
because I'm tired of Clayton's act, having backed him a couple of times. I mean, for me, if I'm making a line, I'd have to really do this exercise, but my gut tells me I'd start with Belichick at 3 and Clayton probably at like 5. So I mean they're close-ish together, but I think the math still works out that it's quite a sensible head-to-head. And Clayton wouldn't be the first horse I've gotten off of and stuffed me in a locker either, so it wouldn't shock me or anything. It's just not my opinion. So that's how we're going to play that one. All right, we've got our head-to-head, we've got our pick 4. For more from Drew, check out inthemoneypodcast.com, and you'll probably be back here next week talking Woodbine with me.
Let's do it. Sounds good. Have a good weekend.
See what we can do about those blank walls back there.
I'll try.
Cheers, my friend. Just a reminder that both JK and I are really happy to be associated with these expert picks over at Twin Spires. Pretty much every racing day in New York, you can find me on there talking about every race at Belmont. Same thing with JK for the California circuit. Lots of other great people involved too. The likes of Ashley Mayu, Nick Tamaro, and many others. Just one of the many cool things about the Twin Spires platform, a chance to hear from the likes of us about these races you're going to play. You can find us over at twinspires.com or on the Twin Spires app. Next up on the show, we have a guest who has not been here in too long. Was a regular when we were doing daily Keeneland podcasts about a year ago, and we have him on for our pro player roundtables. But it's good to see his face on this late week show. Pro player from Lexington, Kentucky, Sean Boarman. How are you, my man?
Doing good, Pete. How are you?
Things are good. How has this Keeneland meet been treating you so far?
It's been pretty good so far.
That's excellent. I'm glad to hear it. I know you've had some price horses running in that we've talked about. I'm glad to hear you've kept the good times going. Historically, how is the closing fall weekend for you? Is it there's some opportunities?
Yeah, I think there's always opportunities. You get a few horses coming back that have a trip over the track, and that's always been a good angle at Keeneland. Historically, I do better early in the meet with the better stakes races, but it's there's opportunities these last few days.
That's good to know. Can't wait to get you talking more about what you're going to be expecting from Keeneland and the Breeders' Cup. It's so weird to have the Breeders' Cup being like basically a full week later than it was in 2015. Was talking with Matt Bernier about this. It's after daylight savings time too. They're going to be fighting the light on Breeders' Cup Saturday. Mm-hmm. It's going to be very interesting, and also just interesting to see how the ground is going to be holding up. I would think it'll be fine, but I would also think there's going to be plenty of juice in it. So we'll we'll save those conversations for as we get closer to the Breeders' Cup. Very happy to have you as part of our Breeders' Cup in the Money Plus package this year, and also as ever on the podcast, the Pro Punters Roundtable show that'll be available, as it always has been, widely proliferated for no cost to the end users. Anyway, we'll get more about that elsewhere in the show. Right now, we're going to talk about race number 7. We've got a 3-and-up allowance going 5.5 on the Keeneland turf. How do you want to get this pick kicked off, Sean?
I don't love this race. And because of that, I'm just going to try to use 2 horses that I think are going to be decent prices, the 11 and the 12. And I typically don't want to go that far outside, but the 12 has got speed, and I think can get a good outside stalking speed trip. And the 11 is the best finisher. So a race I don't really like, I'm just going to take the best closer and the best speed and just go on with it. I guess the one thing we should mention is they've been coming off the turf this week to save it for Breeders' Cup weekend, and there's supposed to be a little rain today, so this race could be transferred to the dirt, and in that case, I have no idea what to do.
If it's off, what about American Mandate as a potential best speed horse having some good dirt races? That one would be the first place I'd look if it happens to come off. And I was just curious, what did your numbers have on number 3, Biarritz, who was raced at Arlington the last day, but did look maybe like an inside speed who could keep running unexposed 3-year-old in this spot. Give me your thoughts on those 2.
American Mandate makes plenty of sense on dirt or turf, really. I question his finish, and I just sort of, when I've got better late pace numbers on the outside speed horse that can sort of dictate things, I like to go there instead of the inside speed, especially, if the outside speed is going to be a price. I think from a gambling perspective, the 12 is just a better bet than the 4 is. The 3 to me is just not fast enough. Might make the lead, but doesn't have the ability to finish with some of these others. Even though it's a young, possibly improving horse, I just sort of see him being first to quit and backing out of it.
That makes sense. Yamato, I think, is interesting. Looking at the time form pace projector, doesn't figure among the leaders. And my gut on this is because they don't have any pace figures from the Kentucky Downs run on September 9th. I'm guessing that's where you and or your software that you use to assist you in your pace judgments, I'm guessing that's how you have Yamato up on the lead. And it makes me wonder if that couldn't be kind of a nice edge if most people aren't even thinking of Yamato as part of the pace and you think you've got the best speed there.
Yeah, I've got pretty good pace figures coming out of Kentucky. You've always sort of got to question the timing down there, but this meet, it was much better than it has been in the past. So I trust my figures coming out of Kentucky Downs more than I typically do. And, I've got that horse as improving at every call last race. And those horses a lot of times will just show more natural speed the next time out than they've shown previously also. So I expect that horse to be pretty close to the pace, if not right up on it.
Good stuff on the 12 in race number 7. Let's move on to race number 8. We've got a 2-year-old maiden going 1 mile and a 16th on the dirt. Very curious what you came up with in here. Some names that folks will remember from races a little bit earlier in the summer.
Sure. I've had a lot of success over the years in these 2-year-old route races, just playing the horses that have run long before. And in this spot, you've got 2 of them, the 4 Munquad and the 8 Anti-Gravity. They both run long. They both run long over the Keeneland surface. So I'm going to use those 2 and then throw in the 7 McDowell as possibly being the best speed. 7 is bred to go long, even though he hasn't been long. and was sort of trapped down on a bad rail at Monmouth last time. So I think that's a horse that could really improve some.
Those are three who are on my list. Monquad being what I thought was an obvious top pick after the sort of horror show of a trip the last day. A big number to run back to, going 7, pedigree to run all day. So I like your approach very much in there, especially Monquad, but also I get the case for McDowell and what was the other one?
The 8 anti-gravity.
The 8 anti-gravity also, yeah, definitely has those 2 route races to run back to for Jerry Hollendorfer. Let's move on to race number 9, our third leg in this thing. 3-year-old allowance going a mile on the turf for fillies and mares this time around. I'm curious to ask. This is a race where time form does not have a fast pace, as it favors on or near the lead. That was definitely coloring my analysis. How do you think the pace shapes up in here?
I think it's probably average to possibly fast. It's nowadays it's very hard to get a truly fast-paced run in some of these turf routes. The guys just don't want to do it. But with a horse like the 1 drawn the way he is drawn, and the 2, I think you could get some pace on in here. I like a horse in here sort of regardless of the pace scenario. I really like the 3, Ask Bailey for Maker Gaffleon. I think Maker, he's been really good this meet, especially with turf horses, and Gaffleon's riding great. And Ask Bailey finished really nicely. I thought at a very slow pace at Kentucky last time. It has sort of shown it can handle multiple pace scenarios. So I've got the best figures on her, the best finish, and I'm just going to single her and go to the last leg.
I mean, she makes a ton of sense in this spot. That did look like a significant improvement last time. And cutting back to the mile, you think that improvement will stick with her?
I do. I think, once Maker gets these horses going, they typically hold their form. So, and he goes back and forth between distances better than most trainers. So I think she should hold form, yeah.
Who do you think will end up being the best of speed in this spot? My eye was drawn to In Good Spirits in that role, but it doesn't sound like you're too convinced.
I think she could be best of speed, certainly. I question if she can hold off the 3, but she's very logical to be the best speed horse at the end. Yeah.
Maybe one in my reckoning, maybe one that I'd look to back up with, though I do like the Ask Bailey case as well. Let's talk about race number 10. We're back to the 2-year-old maiden ranks, 6 furlongs on the dirt this time. Sean, how are we going to get paid?
Well, it's a tough race. There's not a lot of form to go on. I think I'm going to play. There's a Brad Cox first-time starter and an Asmussen first-time starter that are both drawn well the way Keeneland's track's been playing. I think you take those 2, the 7 and the 11, and then throw in the 10 horse, who he hasn't run on dirt yet, but has got the best form of those that have run. And I think you just take those 3 and go and play them, because past that, you're sort of guessing, in my opinion.
Macron, definitely interesting on that dam side pedigree. Plenty of winners out of that dam. That's an angle I know you believe in. Is that part of the appeal of that one?
Yeah, that's part of the appeal, but mainly it's just Asmussen,
right.
Asmussen with a 2-year-old drawn outside. I mean, you get him and Brad Cox, you're pretty high percentage to win that race with one of those 2, and then throw in the best horse that's got any form. Just makes sense to me.
I always give an extra look to Munning's first out. Name rejected. I'd love to hear the story about what the rejected name was by Munnings out of Boldy. We'll see if we know anybody at Double Down Stables to tell us that one. I wasn't necessarily convinced on this one, but maybe on the Munnings factor alone, I was considering having a backup. Neither of the siblings were able to win at 2, and to be perfectly honest, I just don't know much about this barn. Do you give that one any count? Yeah,
sure. DeVito's, perfectly capable to win first out. I just think, with Cox and Asmussen in there, it may be tough. And I don't love the inside draw for firsters, especially this meet. It seems like you don't really want to be down on the rail a lot. So I would try to duck that horse, but Jimmy DeVito, he can try and he can get one ready first time, certainly.
When you talk about being against those firsters breaking down inside, is that just for fear that they're not going to break and get buried, or more about the specific track profile at Keeneland, where it does feel like the outside speed has been better than the inside speed? From you watch a lot more than me, but from the days that I've watched.
Yeah, both. I think they're more likely to break slow, but more importantly, they're more likely just to get trapped down inside, and that's been a sort of a tricky spot to be in this meet.
We got one more minute here. I will go ahead and ask you one question looking ahead to Breeders' Cup. And it's not really fair to ask you this without prepping for it, but we'll just, it's meant to be an off the top of the head thing. Sure. Are there any particular aspects in terms of track profile type stuff, like along the lines of what we were just talking about, that you might go into these races looking for? Things that maybe not everybody would pick up on about the way that Keeneland in the fall plays, and any surface, any distance, just any particular profile or biasy type thing you think could have an effect on the Breeders' Cup races from this far out.
Sure. I sort of expect the main track to be the best paths. This meet have sort of been the 2 through 4 path. I don't think you've wanted to be on the rail much at all this meet, especially trapped down in there sort of under duress if you're dueling on the rail or trapped behind horses and having to steady or search for room down there. I think that's been sort of a bad spot. The sort of 3 wide speed trip has just been tremendous all meet, and I expect it to stay that way and play that way for the Breeders' Cup.
Is that sprints and routes?
Yeah, I think yes. I think all distances. If you can get sit that 3 wide pressing speed trip, that's been the best trip.
Very cool. Anything you've noticed on the turf?
I think the turf's been pretty fair, and sort of expect that Breeders' Cup weekend as well. It may be there may be some cut in the ground, but it's been pace has mattered. You can go wire to wire if you're the best horse, but typically you want to have a little bit of finish on Keeneland's turf course. So I think it'll be pretty fair.
In other words, it plays like turf racing.
Exactly.
One more thing before we let you go. You got to tell me about the guys over your shoulder. Is that a young Sean Boarman we're seeing?
Very young, yeah. That is me and my first dog, who passed away, years ago now. But my wife got me that for Christmas, and it's one of my favorite things.
That's awesome. It's a great, you know me. I'm a sucker for the black labs. Nothing against Norman, who's been very quiet during this broadcast.
It's shocking. That's the biggest upset of the weekend right here.
Good stuff, Sean. Thank you so much. Really look forward to seeing you in a safe and socially distanced way, of course, in not too far now. Breeders' Cup right around the corner, making my triumphant return to Lexington. And get ready, folks, for some seriously productive writing by me when I come back, because what the hell else am I going to do quarantine for 2 weeks? So I'll be listening to those records and writing. If you have any questions for me, I'll be bored. So come out of the woodwork right after the Breeders' Cup. You'll get more of me than you want on social media and on the page. Sean, thank you so much, buddy.
Anytime, bud.
Hey, folks, just wanted to let you know that our buddy and colleague Spencer Luganbuehl of Redboard Rewind is looking for help from you, the listeners. He wants to have more interaction on the shows and have people help out, asking questions of guests, picking topics, picking races, all that exciting stuff. Reach out to him on Twitter at handy_capper. You can send a message to us via inthemoneypodcast.com or at inthemoneymedia on Twitter. Another way you can reach out. Check out what he's got going on over there. The shows have been great lately. I know I'm really looking forward to hearing what David Aragona has to say next week, recapping this Empire Day at Belmont this weekend. Check him out at handy, HANDI_capper on Twitter. That's going to do it for this edition of the show. Maybe I'm sort of lying. There is going to be a quick little end roll ad, as we call them in the biz, after this. But did want to come on here and do the traditional close before we get to the music and that last bit of word from a sponsor. And I'm going to use this time to thank John Camardo, Drew Coatney, Sean Boarman, DJ Unstable himself, producer Craig Gorbanoff for pushing all the right buttons, all of our various sponsors. But most of all, I want to thank all of you, the listeners, for making these shows so much fun to do. Looking forward to covering this Breeders' Cup for you, with you, and answering questions, doing all that good stuff, and hopefully finding a whole lot of winners. This show's been a production of In the Money Media. Our business manager is Drew Coatney. You know who he is. Our chief creative officer is Jonathan Kitchen. I think you know him as well. I'm Peter Thomas Fornital. May you win all your photos. Last thing, just want to remind folks about the Golden Hour Pick 4. Any Day, Santa Anita Park and Golden Gate are both running. You can play this low takeout wager with raised minimums. We're loving playing these bets. And I'm going to do a special show, a very short special show tomorrow. Benny and I will go over this week's Golden Hour Pick 4, as we've been doing the last few weeks on this show. Didn't get time to get it together for this show, but you will have that podcast. It'll appear in the In It, the Money podcast feed, wherever you get your podcasts. Have a good week, folks.